Reimagining Success, episode 244. You're listening to the Reimagining Success podcast, where we help you design a business and a life that allows you freedom from the 9 to 5. I'm your host, Anna Lundberg, ex-corporate good girl, now a business mentor and coach, author, mum of 2, and I'm here to help you create more freedom, flexibility, and fulfillment. Now let's get started with redefining success outside of the 9 to 5. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another interview. I'm here with the lovely Sara Jaoude, and we actually know each other via a mutual friend, but my interest has been perked, as it were, because I have been following you, Sarah, on LinkedIn and seeing all the things you're writing about your current work and lifestyle. So that's why I thought it would be amazing to bring you on. And we were just talking about how great it is to see women, I want to say of a certain age. I don't think we're old enough to say that, but certainly,
I hope not
just women in their early 20s, and not just bro marketers who are able to perhaps travel and be entrepreneurial and so on. So without further ado, I'd love for you to introduce yourself and tell us what were you doing previously, perhaps in your career and lifestyle, and then the last few years, what have you been doing differently?
Yeah. So my name is Sara Jaoude. I am a lawyer by trade. So previously, I was a partner in a law firm of 400 people. I was heading up a team in real estate, and I had a very sort of corporate job, going into the office every day, the suits and the tights and the office lighting and all that. No working from home, no remote, very traditional. Pandemic hit, and together with my husband, we kind of, made a reassessment of our lives. People say don't make big decisions during a pandemic, but we thought, well, let's make a big decision. Let's become digital nomads. I stopped being a lawyer in a firm doing real estate, and I joined my husband's business, which is in the tech field, and I now deal with the operations and the business development side.
I love that. And that really is a very corporate background. I guess law is one of those most traditional pieces. So I guess one of the things I talk about in the name of this podcast is reimagining success. So if you look at that career, being a lawyer, it feels very much traditional success. Never thought about the tights before, but the formal uniform and earning a good salary and respected in society and blah, 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 all these things. So I wonder, I guess when you chose that path, was that what you were thinking about in terms of professional success? Was that something that you focused on as coming out of university?
Yes, absolutely. The idea of being a lawyer and that very corporate side of things was something that I almost dreamed of since school. It seemed like the natural progression. It was, as you say, one of those accepted professions, particularly, from my background. I think my parents, particularly my father, was very much, it's law, medicine, engineering, architecture, maybe, So went down that path, and then it's that whole, well, you have to keep going. You have to keep going up the career ladder. So you maybe start at a small firm, which is what I did, and then you progress to bigger and bigger firm. And then when you get there, then you become an associate, then a senior associate, then you become an equity partner. And it does still feel like by the time you make it partner in a law firm, especially the legal sector, that's it. If you like the firm that you're in, then you stay there until you retire, or maybe you move to another firm, but you're still a partner. It's very unusual to have that whole, well, I'm not going to be a partner anymore. And actually, I think that was the biggest shock, because it's like, well, you've reached it. What do you mean you're leaving to do something completely different?
That's so interesting. So you really got to that moment at the pinnacle of success in a way on that career path. And I'm intrigued because, of course, we've heard so much around the great resignation and the shift and so on caused by the pandemic. Do you relate to that? Do you feel that you're part of that big movement?
I do, in a way. I don't think I was that aware of the movement as I was quitting. Certainly partners have a very big notice period. So I had to make that decision almost a year before it actually materialized. So I think I was actually very much thinking about my life moving forward and how I didn't want to be chained to my desk anymore. That was a big thing. For someone that now works remotely, I didn't particularly enjoy working from home. I felt very chained to my desk and very in these four walls. But I also knew that I didn't want to go back to an office to, the tights and the suits and the office lighting. So it did feel like, okay. And it was only after I left, actually, that I began to hear stories of other people, but also meeting digital nomads that had done the same thing. So it did feel a bit alien and weird to be doing it, and a little bit lonely because I didn't actually know other people that were either had done it or were doing it. So I didn't actually have those role models, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. And were you clear then? You knew what you were leaving behind. Were you clear on, yes, I'm going to be working with my husband and this is what I'm going to be doing? Did you have a very clear vision for the next stage of your career?
Yes, I think I was very clear what I was leaving behind. And I'm very glad that I did it when I did it, in the sense that I'm glad I went for partnership. I got it. I did it for 3 years. So I feel that I had an understanding of what I was leaving. And a lot of people were saying, well, if you regret it, you can come back. But I felt that I knew exactly that I wasn't going to have any more surprises in that side. I was very lucky in terms of finishing on a Thursday and not having to jump into a job on the Friday. And very lucky in the sense that actually I had a few months we got organized. We decided to try the traveling side of digital nomads by starting off in Europe. So I could actually just do that at my own pace. Kind of dabbling into helping Eddie out with the business side, but not feeling like it was very formal. And then kind of exploring, just letting it sit, which I think is very important, letting it sit and going, actually, what do I want to do? Do I want to become a yoga teacher? Do I want to, write? Do I want to, do something completely different? So it was nice to have that time to let it settle.
Yeah, absolutely. That time to experiment and be curious and so on. And I suppose you had that year as well, given that you had such a long kind of notice period. And that's in a way luxury to have a bit of that path before you suddenly get thrown into, oh my goodness, I've got to do something. If success before was the partner track and so on, and you achieved that and you were there, what is success for you now?
It's funny because, I come from a background where it's, being half Asian, the idea of success is very much, the company car and the title, what your business card says, etc., and how it is presented, how you are presented to the world. The Portuguese side, I think the Mediterranean is more about, the happiness, and just living your life and having a quality of life. For me, I think the immediate thing that I would say sounds a little bit basic, but it was actually not having tension headaches, number one. And number two, not having the Sunday scaries. Whilst I had wonderful colleagues that I still keep in touch with today and, they're friends, it got to Sunday and I'd be like, I really don't want to do this tomorrow. And it would get to Friday and I'd get so excited because it's the weekend and you're almost wishing the week away. I no longer do that. So for me, happiness is not having that tension headache and also being in control of my time. That is a major part of, for me, the day-to-day success is I can craft my day. I'm not stressed. I'm not anxious. I don't begrudge working in the evening or a weekend. It's a completely different outlook.
I love that. I was just teaching a workshop on stress and resilience a couple of hours ago, and we talk about how autonomy is such an important piece. And I think if you feel like people just dumping work on you, you're kind of just pushing, you don't have that control, tied in with, as you say, the Sunday scaries and that, my Facebook posts that I get, my memories from like 15 years ago, always, oh, it's Monday again, it's so awful. And then TGIF on the Friday, it's sort of, and I loved my job. So even within that environment, it's so socially acceptable that you're stressed about starting on Monday. you count the hours until the weekend and so on. So it's a bit of an emperor's new clothes kind of thing. Like, what are we all doing? We're looking around and thinking that that's normal behavior, that we don't like our work. And obviously manifested for you in tension headaches. For me, I get migraines as well. So it's a physical representation of something that's not quite right.
And I think that in so many sectors, the idea of success is also linked to whether you manage people and how many people do you manage. And whether you do that well or not, I don't think it should be a measure of success. And actually, you might do that very well, but might not enjoy it. You know, I certainly thought when I started having a team, I was like, I have arrived. You know, I have a team. I'm a manager. And then I was like, oh, you know, actually, this isn't for me. But a lot of people, unfortunately, I don't think feel that they can say, you know, managing a team of 2, 20, 25, 200, it's not for them because it is equated with success. I do think that some people may not be able to feel they can progress if they say the management side is for me.
And some people are just very skilled technicians, and it's almost sort of frowned upon. As you said, to progress in most companies, you do have to then manage teams. And unfortunately, you get away from the very thing that perhaps you enjoy and are good at as well. Strangely, or maybe not so strangely, that same thing applies with startups and entrepreneurs, because I think there's this idea that bigger is better. Well, I'm the founder. We've all got these fancy names on our business cards and it's only you. But actually, the ambition has to be to grow, to scale up. And hopefully there's a bit of a movement. There's a book called Company of One. And there's this idea of more being the kind of solopreneur or leaner version, and that can also be success, because otherwise we're bringing with us those same definitions. As you say, you just have to grow at any expense. It's all sort of revenue, top line growth, and not really thinking, hang on a second, am I getting the lifestyle benefits? Am I doing the work that really gets me excited to jump out of bed in the morning on the Monday?
Yeah.
And so that sounds very sensible and very smooth, and you're working very well with your husband, I'm sure. So have there been any setbacks or difficulties or sort of wobbles that you've had? Oh my goodness, am I making the right decision? And what have been the challenges over the last couple of years for you?
I think I'm a very risk averse person. So I think, you know, that's one of the reasons I went into law. I need, you know, plan A, B, C down to G. And actually, you know, that was my biggest wobble just as I was about to finish was, what if it doesn't work? And actually my biggest fear was thinking, if this doesn't work, then I've got to go back into law because that is the skill that I have. And I knew that's not something I wanted. So to overcome that wobble, we very much sat down and we devised plan A, you know, through the whole alphabet, all these different scenarios, none of which, touch wood, have materialized, but it gave me that safety net that we knew. You know, obviously life always throws you those curveballs, but it was just having that is quite a bit of a safety net, quite a bit of an armor, which then kind of allows you to move forward and be like, oh, okay, yeah, this is going to work. So
I love that. And I'm sure that resonates with people who are still quite nervous about making the jump. And I think people think, oh my gosh, I have to take the leap and I have to be, you know, take all these risks and so on. And that's part of the journey. And actually, it's great to hear that if you want to, you can have a plan A, B, C, D, and so on. No one's forcing you to, you know, put your family livelihood at risk or to take any, you know, anything that makes you feel, of course, there's always a bit of discomfort, but you don't have to in any way sort of put everything in jeopardy and throw caution to the wind and take a leap, right? There's a more cautious way of approaching things.
Exactly. And I do think that, you know, that comes with changing careers and changing lifestyles completely at a more mature stage in your life when you've got a bit of life experience, and you know you will stop yourself before you're completely destitute and, you know, eating 99p ramen like on the floor of a flat with no furniture. So you know that you will stop yourself before it comes to that, which is like, you know, for me, I leap from what we have to that scenario very quickly. Unfortunately, my husband brings me down to reality, and you know, it's not like that.
And good to hear. But it sounds like, so you've got your husband, obviously you've got each other, which can be challenging, I imagine, working together, but you've also got each other as that lifeline and support. What other support have you had? Have you been part of communities? Have you, you know, found mentors and coaches? How have you kind of created that support system around you?
Yes, so it's interesting because I think my greatest support is my husband still, and we work together and everything, and we're doing this together for the first time. Neither of us had the experience of that digital nomad life. There are communities out there. There's quite a few on LinkedIn of professionals who've changed careers, which is always very, it's very good to see because their stories mirror yours. And you do have to rely on your friends as well, and from your previous life for that support. They might not quite understand, exactly the dilemmas that you face. They might feel that you're sitting by the pool all day, but you need to rely on that continuous network of support as well as, our families who come from very traditional backgrounds, but have been very much like, okay, this is interesting. Tell me, how do I tell people what you do? And then they get on board and they support you. So, yeah.
I love that. And I imagine, it's often well-intentioned people around you who your parents, for natural reasons, are concerned. So I think when they see that you have that plan B, C, D, etc., and they know you and they trust you, and then that's really lovely to hear that they're sort of curious and ready to come along the journey. I'm curious, I suppose, one easy way to take the leap is to package up your skills from your corporate and become a consultant or what free on that kind of thing. It sounds like you wanted to leave the law behind, but did you consider less of a dramatic transition, I guess? Did you consider, is there a way I can kind of just work fewer hours or keep the law somehow?
Yes, I mean, I think that is possible for many industries. I felt so much for mine that wouldn't be possible for the real estate side. I did think, for that part of that plan G, that is possible to do that. But it wasn't something I wanted to do because, quite frankly, I felt like that chapter, that particular stage of my life and practicing real estate law, I didn't want to do because I derived no pleasure from it. Also, I don't think it's particularly remote friendly. But what I knew, and this is again with time, with the months advancing, is that I wanted to build something together with my husband. So rather than it being, I'll get into tech, it was just actually, there is this business already. There is the potential to scale it up. I find it interesting. It could do with my skills. I'm still drafting and reviewing retainer agreements, and it's a different side of the law, but still applying that kind of business logic and the strategy and the legal side. So I thought, well, I can still do the little bits that I like in a different field, and it's a breath of fresh air, really. Different impact.
So you're not turning your back entirely on your skill set, but you're doing it in a much more enjoyable way for you and more flexible, remote friendly, and so on.
Absolutely. And it's been great to actually feel like I have put into practice those skills that I acquired as an equity partner into a much, much, much smaller business, but applying it and seeing how we can grow it. But as you say, in that sustainable way where we can still have that lifestyle, because neither of us made this jump to stay stuck in a, office at home and work 24 hours a day. So I think, it's about the lifestyle for us, not necessarily the work itself, if that makes sense.
That's interesting. Do you relate to, and I'd like to ask this question, the idea of a lifestyle business?
Do you mean, can you elaborate, sorry, on the...
I didn't want to put words in your mouth because I think when I hear lifestyle business, I feel it kind of captures the kind of business that I aspire to and that others like you, because it's around, you want to live the lifestyle of, say, a digital nomad or alongside children or, being able to pursue your hobbies and so on. But you also, to me, want to be fulfilled and do important work and make a difference. I think sometimes it's used in a sort of slightly condescending way compared to a proper startup-y business where, again, you've got the VC investment and you're growing and you've got so I'm just always curious as to how people feel about that term. Does that feel appealing to you? Does that feel like it captures the kind of thing you're doing?
It is I think it's a balance, because I think it is very easy to get completely sucked into that, the VC funding, etc., which is actually, the funding side is something that we are dealing with at the moment. Okay. And it's very appealing, but we know that at the end of the day, we still want to be able to spend 6 months in Thailand. We want to have that time autonomy. So it is finding that balance. Ask me in a year as to whether we've achieved that or not. But that is the goal.
Yeah. No, I think that's the nuance, isn't it? And it's why I struggled to find a word to describe it, because it's not just the freedom. It's not, and it doesn't sound like you're like that either. We're not just there wanting to kind of get a passive income sitting on the beach, but it's also not growth at any cost. It's much more complex for a lot of us. We want the freedom, but we also want the security. You know, there are a lot of things that we're juggling at the same time.
Absolutely, yes. And, just to give you an example, we are attending this conference in Croatia in September, and we are super excited to go and, launch our product at the conference, explain to people what it's about, get people super excited. But then when it ends, we're also very excited to get into our rental car and go and discover Dubrovnik and Split and have some time and, just see a different culture in a different country. So it's just trying to mesh that all together 365 days a year. So.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. And mesh sounds great. I think a lot about integration. So can you tell us a little bit more about the business? So what is the business that you have with your husband?
Sure,
What do you do?
So I would say it's in kind of 3 parts. So Eddie founded the Eddie Hub community. It's an inclusive open source tech community. It's for those people, either starting out in tech or seasoned professionals, so that they feel that they have a safe space and a voice and can get more knowledge, share their knowledge, chat to like-minded people. Alongside that, there is, the YouTube channel, which is more of a learning exercise, hopefully, for that community. I would say that the income generating side is we provide developer relations as a service to, could range to small startups to bigger companies in terms of content creation or public speaking. And then the third side was actually just a project Eddie decided to do one Friday evening on a YouTube live stream, which is an alternative, an open source alternative to LinkFree, which you may be familiar with. So, a page where you can have, all of your links in one place. So from there, that developed into what is now quite a solid product and a business for us, which we've received some funding for. And the niche, I would say, is that it appeals for people in tech who really want to share their journey, whether it is because they have excellent skills and they want to teach people, share those skills. They might be starting out at university. They might be graduates looking for their first job. And this allows them the tech control to create their profile and then show off their content. So, and participate. It's very much about community for us, because we, Eddie and I can sit here and think about a product and how it's going to tick every box, but even together, we're never going to figure out what a whole user base would want. So it's very much, what does a community want? What are they looking for? Dark mode was a major feature that our community really wanted for the app. And then together they built it. So, it's using that community support to move the product forward.
And is it the two of you, or do you also have team freelancers? What does that look like?
So it is the two of us from the developer relations side, plus a amazing video editor that we've got as well. And then we have for the community and for, helping the products move forward, we have an amazing community of over 5,000 people from everywhere in the world. It's been great to be part of something so collaborative, which I feel I didn't have in my previous career, just due to the nature of law. It is still going to be a bit combative, even though you might get on with the other lawyer just fine. And on a Friday night, you might go out for dinner. During the week, you're, very much fighting, for each other's clients' best interest. This is very much, very organic, very collaborative. It's been fantastic to witness that. And it's been great to know people who, some of which had different careers and are now in tech, and to build that support in that community.
And I'm curious, one of my pillars as well is building a personal brand. So I'm curious at 2 levels. And one, I guess Eddie had his business before, and I've seen him being prominent. He has YouTube and so on. So how has he built his presence and credibility in the space. And then also, because I've been seeing you on LinkedIn, I'm curious how your, thought leadership and presence fits into that. So the two sides.
I would say that, actually, I was going to say I would say, but I know Eddie would say this too. I don't feel that I very much kind of intentionally spend a lot of time on it, in terms of crafting that personal brand persona. I think maybe that's my misconception, that you have to craft something to have a personal brand. But I'm very much sort of sharing what's happening in my journey and my thoughts, but still at the same time recognizing that I'm a complete ambivert. Part of me is very comfortable just, being a bit of an introvert, and the other part of me is very happy to, we started a YouTube channel sharing our travel vlogs. Very happy to put myself out there. So it's finding that balance. And in that personal brand, I think previously, with the legal corporate side, you do have to be a certain way. I particularly felt I did have to be a certain way, not pressure from, colleagues or seniors or anything like that. It was just the expectation that I should be a certain way because I am a lawyer. And now I just feel, well, I'm just gonna, share what's happening.
And what about, well, I want to first pick up, actually, I suppose, yes, curating, crafting, I suppose there's an intentionality you can bring if you have a specific objective in mind. But I think documenting it as you're doing is a really low pressure way of sharing content. And it's the way I think people engage, right? It's not just about now creating stuff. And there's just so much content around. I think people like to see the behind the scenes of what's happening, and they're curious about your lifestyle, and especially your community. I imagine they kind of feel like they know you personally. I think that's really nice. And I think a lot of us struggle with that. How much do we share? And we're a bit more introverted and so on. It's about sort of finding that balance that feels comfortable, but also allows us to connect with people that perhaps we wouldn't otherwise engage with.
Absolutely. And I think it's very much that, my temptation, maybe a week into this lifestyle was to be like, please, everybody, quit your jobs, do this, so happy with this, so happy we did this, people would say, any regrets? And I'd just laugh. And, 2 years in, I'm still doing the same, going, nope. Do you miss it? Not at all. Very happy to, meet my lawyer friends for a coffee, but that's it. I don't really ever want to think about, that side. So it was very much wanting to shout that from the rooftops, but then the introvert in me is like, ooh, no, I always worry that comes across. I know how privileged we are, and I know how lucky we are, and I know how hard we worked to be able to get to that point where we could do this. But there's always that concern that could come across as a bit braggy, which, there's still a lot of challenges, but I don't want to come across as either. So I think that's my biggest challenge with the personal brand side, developing something that's going too far, that is feeling too braggy, or actually she's very lucky to be in Asia by the pool doing work. So hopefully that makes
and that's it's so tough, and it is so privileged, and I think that's so tough. And I think all of us, and I see it with new clients as well, again and again, get so enthusiastic, and that maybe they've gone through coaching and now they want to be a coach and they want to tell everyone how amazing it is, and we're so full of excitement and passion, and we kind of bubble up and want to share it, but at the same time, yes, it's not, I don't think anyone wants to or can hear it in that way anyway. It's like a parent telling you, and a grown-up telling you as a child, watch out for this stuff. You need to make those mistakes yourself, and I think you just don't absorb it. So I think it's really inspiring, hopefully, for people to hear these stories, but also understand that it's really hard. You've worked really hard. It's not always plain sailing, and there are many people who have found it too difficult and perhaps chosen to go back to work and so on. So I think that hopefully the range of stories, the balance of sharing the good and the bad, and in no way trying to push anyone into something, right? You're just sharing. I think, as they say, it's not bragging if you've done it. So if you're sharing your experience, and you're so authentic and lovely that please don't worry about that. So hopefully you can continue showing up as you are. And then what about Eddie, more from the business side, I suppose? Is that part of your strategy to position him Is that a big piece of your business, and he's sort of the face of the brand?
Yes, we joke in our sort of client meetings, especially that introductory kind of video call with the client. We very much joke that he's the talent and I'm the muscle and logistics. Which is it kind of breaks the ice, but it is true. I have no interest in coding. I love the business side of it. I love, the business development, the strategizing, etc., and the organizing, etc. But I'm never going to get to his level. It would take me a very, very long time, and I don't think I actually have the aptitude for it. So that is exactly how we've positioned ourselves. He is the expert in his field, and I'm very much trying to back it up with as best as I can with the skills that I have.
I love that. And I guess coming nearer to the end of my framework is around work-life integration. And one of the things I'm curious about is your dynamic, because co-founders by definition have often been tricky. I've heard many a horror story when you were friends and it hasn't worked out, or you met a stranger and it has worked out. And there's been a mix of experiences. And I think I've always been a bit sort of independent and wanting to do my own thing, and that's part of the appeal. Obviously there's a particular dynamic with you doing it with your husband. So how have you found that? Sort of, do you have ways of setting boundaries that you don't talk about work on date night or whatever, or do you have you had any do you have any tips, I guess, for other couples who are setting up business together? How has that kind of family side of it worked for you?
I think that Eddie will say that he's been trying to get me to work with him for years, over a decade. And I was very resistant, not only because I felt I had to achieve a certain level of my career and then I'd be like, okay, but also my parents work in the same field. And I was like, I don't want that. I do not want breakfast, lunch, dinner, car conversation to be about the office politics and constantly talking, about work. And I thought, is there anything else? That really put me off. So no one was more reluctant than me. And I thought, okay, we're going to have a list. There's going to have to be boundaries. As you said, no talk of work at date night. I think, fast forward 2 years, I'm probably the one that brings up stuff during dinner, and he'll be like, no, we're not talking about work now. Let's not talk about work, which is a very different outcome that I thought. In terms of working together, we have incredibly different styles. I think, Eddie certainly finds certain aspects of my work persona quite with other people a little bit scary, which makes me laugh because I'm really not, but I appreciate I can come across that way. So he's like, please don't make people cry. But so we have very different styles. So I did think, is that going to work well together? But I actually think that the different perspectives are very complementary from that side. We have very different roles. I will not be giving any ideas on the coding side, and he leaves it to me on the legal agreement retainer side, and together we do the business development. And to be honest, I think that any couple who has been married for a certain length of time, the things that they have had to negotiate, from who's going to put the bins out to where are we going on holiday, and whose family are we going to spend Christmas with, to many, many other challenges that I think people face in their marriage, is going to prep them very well for working together. That's my view. So I kind of have to eat my hat about my parents, working together and talking a lot about work. So it doesn't feel like I'm talking about work, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, that is interesting. I suppose when you really enjoy it and you share the values around the business and so on, but also when you have very separate roles and domains, I think that sounds like it's really important. And as you said, yes, if you've navigated the very many difficult complications of marriage and so on, then it sounds like you're quite well equipped then to maybe deal with some of those hurdles along the way. It sounds like you are the scary muscle in the team there with the talent. I can't imagine this at all, but I'm sure the lawyer hat comes on and you go in there hard.
But I think you mentioned it perfectly there when you said it's the sharing the common values, it's having that common goal to growing that business and, the direction that you want it to go in. That really is so vital, I think, for a good working relationship.
And I suppose what's really amazing about that is that you're sharing your vision with each other. You're building that both for your personal life, you two together, and for work. Because when I talk about work-life integration, we so rarely think of it that way. It's often that one person, let's be honest, historically, the woman has sacrificed her career for the husbands, or it could be the other way around. It could be more complex these days. But the idea that you can actually craft a business and then, we want to spend 6 months in Thailand, or we want to travel to Croatia, you do that together. And those are the conversations that are a bit harder, perhaps, when you have two very different careers in different industries and companies. But I think it makes it all the more important to have those conversations, that you're building your common vision for the family and for your work as well, and thinking of the implications.
Absolutely. And I think that, it is one of those things that we very much sat down and we decided we don't want to be two ships passing in the night anymore. We might feel that we've reached those certain levels in our career, but we're not spending that quality time, and that's for us what it was about. So,
and to make it all very mundane, I suppose, what does your day-to-day look like? And the big picture, you don't like the cold winters in Europe. You head off to, the beautiful islands of Thailand and so on. But what about your week? Do you work a certain number of days? Are you quite flexible? What does the practicality of it all look like?
I'm going to say two very contradictory things, which one is flexibility is key. And the other, I would say that it is extremely important for digital nomads to have a routine. So that's incredibly, I think those things might feel like polar opposites. What I would say in terms of flexibility is key is that in my previous working life, I'd be like, right, the minute I shut that computer, I don't even want to spend one more brain cell thinking about work. And the very idea of coming home, working out, making dinner, having dinner, and then still having to open my laptop felt like a real chore and actual mental drain, no matter what the task at hand was. Now, in terms of flexibility, we have opened our laptops in some odd places. It's just, I got recently kicked out from a Starbucks in Japan because I overstayed my welcome.
In the Starbucks of all places.
I thought, I've got 2 hours, I'm just going to get some work in. So when you love what you do and you enjoy what you do, and that the rest of your day is very rewarding, you don't care that you're balancing your laptop on that suitcase, in the departures lounge, just trying to get that last email. It doesn't feel taxing like it did to do out of hours stuff. So flexibility, absolutely very important. My mum will say, so what are you doing this weekend? And I'm like, well, we don't really have weekends. So to answer your question, it's very much crafted. Our week, I would say, is very much crafted around what meetings we have, what client commitments we have. But I would say this easier when we're not in the UK to also prioritize, depending on how long we are in a place, either once or twice a week, we are doing something where we are immersing ourselves in the culture. That is a non-negotiable. Might be a Monday morning, might be a Sunday, but it's worked into, that's where I say the routine will come in. So I'm, I don't know if you've come across Andrew Huberman, the Stanford professor, in terms of, his morning routines for productivity. I haven't quite mastered the 6 a.m. wake up, but, just trying to have a productive morning so that then the afternoon can either be more work or actually just quality time. And it doesn't feel so much like work when you're, in an island in Thailand.
Well, no, I can imagine that's the case. And I can see the difference between people here in the rainy UK having to open up their laptops again after the kids have gone to bed or whatever, versus, doing it also for yourself, for your own business, because you have together decided this is a business goal for us and this is what we want to grow. So I think that's a massive shift, isn't it?
It is. And it's also respecting that you work together, but you both may have very different approaches to your day. Eddie is super morning person. By the time I've got up, he has done loads of hours. He's done lots of coding, got lots done. But you know what? He needs his little nap in the afternoon, which is when I become alive,
Perfect.
So it's also respecting that actually one day one of the days I'm off to the spa for the day, and the next he might go motocrossing, so it's just respecting how working together, but respecting that individuality. Very important.
I think that's so important anyway. I mean, over the pandemic, we've all been kind of together, but not quite together. So having that quality time both apart and then also having plans together. And I love that you're immersing yourself in the culture, because of course the danger is that we just kind of go to Starbucks in different countries and you're not actually getting to know where you're going, which of course is missing the whole point.
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah. And I haven't heard of Andrew Huberman, so I'll look that up, because I'm a total productivity geek, but I've lost a little bit of control of my days thanks to the little kids now. But the morning is that time when you feel, even if you're not a morning person, that you have full control of the day, right? So if you do, I had a day a few weeks ago when I had this one thing I wanted to do, and I kept thinking, oh, I'll just do this other thing, and before you know it, the whole day's gone, and that one thing that was important is gone. So I think that's great. And the flexible structure, I'm such a believer in that. As you said, there's an element of routine and structure to give you the stability and to allow you to have the very freedom that you're hoping for. Because I've gone through phases when I don't want an alarm clock and I'm just going to see where the energy takes me. And then it's very unlikely that I'm going to actually achieve anything because I'm a little bit too flexible, right? So you do need that mix.
Yes. And I think that's that misconception about digital nomads. They'll wake up, they'll go to the beach, they'll surf for a little bit, maybe open their laptop for 10 minutes, do a little bit of, and then it's their day is done. It would be great if it was that way, but, got a business to run. So,
And likewise, I may not be in Thailand, but I've just been for a dip in the sea and had a sauna this morning. And then I started my day. So, that integration works, even in the rainy UK as well, I'll say. So, there are different ways of achieving that.
It's having that time autonomy.
Absolutely. And making those choices as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
Amazing. Well, Sarah, I'd love chatting to you and hearing so much more of what's happening behind the scenes. Where can we find you and Eddie online?
So I would say actually the best way to find us online is through our LinkFree platform. So I can very happy to share the details. That's our platform, and then that's got all of our content on there. So
Oh, thank you. Well, congratulations on the transition of working so well together with your husband and living what I'm sure a lot of people will hear as a very aspirational lifestyle. It's always sounded very appealing to do different seasons in different places, and it feels so far removed from the way a lot of us are living. And I think it's always really inspiring to hear sort of the practicalities of what that could look like, and then to see if there are elements of that you can bring in already now and maybe aspire to doing something similar in the future. So thank you so much.
Be ready to do a lot of planning. That's just that's the big key.
A lot of planning, and I guess intentionality again, right? Rather than just being reactive to what's happening, you're actually saying, look, if this is what we want to do, then that means that, you have to be earning the income to support that, you have to be booking flights, you have to be arranging meetings and all these things, right? Exactly. So I imagine there's a lot of the admin as well. Okay, amazing. Thank you so much, Sarah. Love to you and Eddie, and thanks so much for sharing your story.
Thank you.
The Outsiders Business Academy is a self-paced course for you to work through in your own time to learn and implement the foundations of building a profitable business that lets you escape the 9-to-5. So if you're full of great ideas but lack the knowledge and experience to turn them into a viable business that will actually support your desired lifestyle, or you feel like you're doing all the right things and yet you're just not getting the traction and results that you're after, you have come to the right place. I'm here to help you design a profitable and enjoyable business that gives you freedom from the 9-to-5. Register for the Academy and get started learning today at onestepoutside.com/course. That's onestepoutside.com/course.